Welcome friends, it's Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I am going to unbox the September My Monthly Hero Arts card kit, and we'll make a few cards with it. So first, let me just show you what's in the kit. So there's a 4x6 stamp set, and this is a large cluster of 4 sunflowers. So that will fit nicely on a card. And then there are 4 sentiments. Let me actually grab a piece of cardstock so you can see that better. Yes. So the large sunflower sentiment or stamp, and then we get some layering stencils. You get 5 layering stencils, and the card that comes with the kit shows you how to use them. So I have labeled mine. You probably don't need to, but I usually like to do that. So we get number 1, number 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they have little guides in each corner, little square guides in each corner to help you line it up better. And so I guess the whole concept is you can line these up after you stamp, and then you can color the flowers. So use that as your stencil to color the flowers. And the guide tells you colors based on the colors that we got, the colors of ink that we got. So we got Butter Bar in the kit, Caramel, that's for number 2. For number 3, we got Root Beer. And then for number 4, and 5, we got Key Lime Fizz. And so it says to add a heavier layer of the same green to darken the shadows of the leaves. So the Key Lime Fizz we use with stencil 4 and 5, and then using it on top of itself will give us a darker blend. And also in the kit we got a brush, Hero Arts blending brush, and we got, let's see, so for the stamp set we got the coordinating die to cut out this large cluster, and then we got a hello script die and the shadow for it. So that's great. So fancy word die is what that's called. And then we also got thanks, and we got the shadow for that, or the background for that fancy word die. So great. This is a great kit this month, a smaller stamp set, but 2 fancy dies plus a coordinating frame cut and 4 inks, and then a 5 stencil layering set. So lots of goodies in this kit. Let's go ahead and get started creating. So with card number 1, I have placed my die onto my white card base, 120 pound, and taped it with some low tack tape. And then I want to cut this top part, so I'm going to do some partial die cutting. So what I'm going to do is actually put my plate on the area that I want to cut, and then place it into my die cutting machine this way. And then that's going to cut everything underneath the plate, and everything not underneath the plate will not cut. So that is how you do partial die cutting. So I will angle this just a bit because I want to cut right about here. I ran that through my die cutting machine, and then now here I'm using my scissors to just trim that up a bit.
And I'm going to trim it even a little bit more once I place my die cut flower on top. So you'll see that a little later. I'm going to set that aside and stamp my floral image onto some white 65-pound cardstock. And using Hero Arts Intense Black ink, I'm going to stamp that a few times to get a really good impression. This is a dye ink, so it dries really fast, but I want to make sure that ink is totally dry before I apply ink. So I'm heating it with my heat tool. Here I'm placing my panel, stamped panel, and stencil number 1 from the layering stencils that were in the kit. Matching that up to the floral image and using my Make Art board to hold that in place with the magnets. And I'm bringing in the Butter Bar ink from the kit and just loving these layering stencils because I am a lazy colorist. I don't like to color. I like to make the final product, but I don't like to color. So these stencils, layering stencils, make it so easy to apply the color and stay within the lines. So I am going to go ahead and heat set once I add that Butter Bar ink before I go to the next stencil layer number 2. So I'm going to line that up on my image and then use my second ink. You'll notice in the top left corner I have placed the number 2 on my stencil with a Sharpie. And I did this for all of my stencils. I got a few upside down, so that little up arrow lets me know that that is the top part of the stencil. So lined that up and brought in my caramel ink and used that to add some shading to the sunflower cluster. And then now I'm bringing in stencil number 3, which is like the insides of the flowers, and the root beer ink from the kit. I am loving this. This makes it so easy. You can do production style, make a lot of cards with these layered stencils, and it would just be so easy to do because you don't have to clean your stencils in between. You can just go from one card to the next. Heat setting that just so that color stays in place, especially because it is darker than the green that I'm about to use. So I'm affixing stencil number 4 to my station and bringing in the Twisted Citron. Oops, no. Bringing in the key lime fizz. This reminds me of Twisted Citron. Bringing in the key lime fizz that came in the kit and coloring my leaves. Lovely, loving the way that this is turning out. And then there's one more stencil. Oops, let me heat set that first. Again, you don't want these colors to mix too much, so you want to make sure that for the most part they're pretty dry between applications. You don't always have to do that when you're going, depending upon how much ink you're going to be putting on the stencil. Okay, so with stencil number 5, I'm bringing that key lime fizz in again and adding more, and so hopefully this will darken up. I am following the guide that came in the kit that's on the back of the 6x8 stamp set, and it tells me to do these things. So I am really following that. I added green on the centers, even though that's what it says on the card, but the final floral on the card doesn't look like mine, but I like mine anyway. So just a different spin. And we're gonna move on to the next step. I have placed the card base in my Misty and am going to stamp my sentiment directly on the card base and using that Hero Arts Intense black ink, and I'm going to stamp it a few times, get a really good impression. This card is coming together so quickly. This definitely would be an easy one to mass produce. So here I am going to, I've applied liquid glue to the back of my floral, and then I'm bringing it to my card base and just lining that up, and we'll place that acrylic block there so that it adheres very well before I move on to the next step. Once that sets, I'm going to take my scissors and do just a little bit of fussy cutting to trim off some edges that were a little rough, just a little bit on the left and then again a little on the right. So that's what I'm doing here, just cleaning that up a bit so that both sides look really good, really neat. And then lastly, I am going to add some Nuvo White Blizzard crystal glitter drops to the insides of each flower. Just add some sparkle and shine, and then bring in my Ebony Nuvo glitter drops or crystal drops and add 3 dots in a triangular fashion. And that finishes this card. Very easy. Lovely. I believe this one is my favorite, but let me know in the comments as you go through the video which one you like best. Card number 2 is an A2 card, and here I am using stencil number 1, but I've turned it over backwards, and then am using it to make a background for this card, and bringing in the Butterbur ink from the kit. And then I am going to bring in stencil number 2, turn it over as well, and just place it randomly on my card panel, and bring in that caramel ink and apply. Some of it is over top the butter bar, some isn't, just kind of blending where they meet. Ooh, I like that. I like that. So now I'm moving my stencil, bringing in some more of that caramel ink, and I love the way this background is shaping up. Bringing in my key lime fizz, and I'm going to add some leaves around the outer edges of this background. And lovely, lovely. Loving the way this is shaping up. This background is shaping up, and I am just going to add a little more green and be done with that background. Now I've stamped this floral the same way I stamped it for card number 1, but in the center I used some intense black ink versus the green ink that I used in the first one. So doing it the exact same way. And so I have used glue to add that floral to the right side of my panel and trimmed off the excess. And now I am placing it on some Hero Arts cardstock. I am loving this kit because the stencils just make these cards come together so quickly. And here I am bringing in my sentiment that I have die cut off camera using the sentiment die thanks in the kit. And I have stacked that, cut that out of black cardstock, stacked it 3 times, glued it together, and then used vellum to cut out the shadow behind. I forgot to mention I brought in a little moss ink to add shadows on my leaves because that is a little bit darker than a key lime fizz, and so I like that shadowing just a little better. That's Hero Arts moss ink. And then I added some copper liquid pearl drops to the front of this panel, and that's it for this card. And card number 3 is a slimline card. And have you ever seen purple sunflowers? I haven't, but Wikipedia says they are out there. Let me know if you've seen purple sunflowers before. Purple's my favorite color, so I could not wait to use purple. I brought in some Grape Slush Hero Hues dye ink and some Reactive Thistle ink that was in a previous kit, as well as that moss green ink, and am using the Key Lime Fizz ink from the kit. So I'm coloring this, I'm speeding this up because I'm doing the exact same thing that I did for the previous cards, but I wanted to show you the ink. So I will speed this process up, add a little music, and then come back and talk through the rest of the steps. I have colored the image twice and used the coordinating die that came in the kit to cut it out. And then I have also cut out 2 additional white clusters, floral clusters, because I'm going to use that to give some dimension to the card. So I've glued those together here and placed an acrylic block on top. I am bringing in one of my inked clusters and gluing that to my 2 white blanks and setting that aside while I work on the rest of my card. So here I am figuring out where I want to place my floral clusters. I applied some liquid glue to the back and go ahead and place that on my card base, directly on the card base, and use the acrylic block to make sure that adheres. And then I'm working on my second floral focal image, and we'll apply glue to that and place that directly on top of my first floral image. But first, kind of line that up at an angle. I use my scissors to trim off the excess and find it easier to turn my card base to the back and then trim. Next, I place my panel onto my card base using double-sided tape. And for this card, I'm using the Hello die from the cat and the shadow, and have cut that out of 110-pound black cardstock 3 times, stacked it together, and affixed it with glue, and then placed the vellum shadow underneath. And here I've placed it onto my card. I am loving all of this purple. I bring in my Nuvo crystal glitter drops in liquid Mercury and apply 3 drops. I also use White Blizzard Nuvo drops and actually apply in circular motion around the insides of the cards. Lovely. I will be sure to show some close-ups at the end of this video. Now let's take a look back at all of the cards I made in today's video. I hope you liked the video and will give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. Leave any questions in the comments below and I'll be sure to respond. Until next time, good day, friends.